It's really, really great to be at SSG. I've got many happy memories of being on the organising committee, doing treasure hunts and various evening quizzes. I honestly think that this is kind of one of the best of the UCISA conferences, because my experience was that people actually talk to each other and kind of share experience, and there's a real kind of vibe about. So I'm really, really happy to be here. I'm going to talk to you about a campus chatbot built on Alexa and in our mobile app, which we launched very recently in March this year. It's been getting some really good press, and I hope to share with you, excite you that you could perhaps go on this journey yourself. Or if you don't want to, you can pay us some money and we'll provide it for you. I really enjoyed that intro video, thinking about how it used to be. So I inserted this slide from the collection. This is a lecture theatre at Lancaster University back in the day. Particularly enjoy those huge, giant tellies. OHPs. Anyone still got any OHPs left? Yeah, I knew it. Yeah, there's still some. I used to look after AV, and then I moved on to look after the service desk. And one of my things that I did was got rid of all the OHPs and all the VHS video recorders. So I was super, super popular. But it's interesting, isn't it, to think back, and even in that introductory video, just to think about the kind of technology that students are going to be expecting when they come to university, and challenging ourselves and saying, have we actually got those ready to go? So here's the plan, and we'll see where we go on this. So I hope to talk to you a little bit about, why bother? That's certainly what a lot of people who give us funding to do IT projects said. They weren't major keen on doing an Alexa skill. They said, this is just a bit of new tech, no one's going to use it, go away. So we had to sell the story to them. I'll tell you how we got there. For university terms, I think what is being marketed as a very short space of time. I still think we could have gone a bit faster, but we'll get onto that. I'll show you what we've built, and I've also brought a device, and hopefully if you keep quiet and the Wi-Fi works, we might even be able to show you it live. I like to live dangerously. And then talk a little bit about where we're going to take this technology next. A little bit about Lancaster. So these are the obligatory marketing slides, which our marketing department say we have to put in. Interestingly, when they gave me a copy of these slides, I noticed that the 6th, 9th and 8th position were just little text boxes. When I moved them out of the way, it had the previous numbers on it. So they can't even be bothered to sort of produce a new slide deck. But the idea here is that triple top 10, TEF Gold for research, so we're good at research and teaching, and we were very proud to win University of the Year in 2018. I'm not sure how long I can continue to use this slide for, but I figure, have we passed the halfway point of 2019? I'll maybe take that out next time. So my title at Lancaster is Head of IT Partnering and Innovation. And the IT partnering side is trying to keep the entire university happy with all of the IT services that we provide. Sometimes a challenging task. The innovation part is kind of where voice came from. And if you take one thing away from this presentation, it's that somewhere in your IT organization, you should be doing some innovation. What do I mean by innovation? I always describe it as doing things that don't have a business case, or necessarily any funding, and they might get you into trouble, and they're most likely going to fail. I love failing. I fail most days. I like telling this story. So we started off at Lancaster running an innovation team, and we were given a little bit of money and resource to do interesting things. The director at the time came up with this idea that we'd have a digital booth. And the concept was that the student would go into the digital booth, and they'll be able to record a message about their use of IT services and what they would like to see in the future. And it will be super engaging, and then we could use all those messages and put them on the website, and it will be really good. So we had to think about how to do that. We decided, and this was the first mistake, we would get our theatre studies department to build the booth, because they're good at building things right, staging and that kind of stuff. So they built this, what can only be described as a very dark box of extremely kind of heavy wood, and we installed a computer and a screen in it. And then, and to be honest, I can't actually remember how this happened, but we decided that rather than just speaking to a screen, it would be good to have some interaction, and we came up with the idea of a digital puppet, which we called Eddie Lizard. And we thought it would be really good if the people could interact with this puppet and talk to it, and then we could record them, and it would all be great. We got quite a long way down the road. As you can see from the picture, we kind of built it, and we tried this out at a student fair. It did not go well. So first of all, the students thought it was a photo booth, and they went into it. When they went into it and realized it was a talking lizard, and it was incredibly dark and scary, they rapidly came back out of it, and we had like virtually no engagement. The other thing was you needed a full Luton van with a tail lift to move it around campus, and about 8 people in a whole day. It was a complete disaster. And one of the most surreal days of my innovation experience was when we invited a whole delegation from Gartner, very important Gartner executives. The IT director still loved this and thought it was an amazing idea. We invited them all to come, and I had a whole day talking to them in the voice of a lizard. And they were kind of coming out and going, oh, this is brilliant, yeah, really, really kind of engaging, and, you know, Lancaster's doing great things. And at lunchtime, I was like, what has just gone on? So we chopped up the DigiBooth into little pieces. I've still got a little bag of sawdust. But in fact, even though it was a complete failure, it did lead to other things. So we rebuilt it with a nice aluminium frame and portable things, and we now do have something that we can use to gather feedback. Why do I tell you all of this? Because this is really the seed doing innovation which caused us to be interested in voice. So part of the innovation remit that we have is to spend some time looking at technologies that are coming along in the future and investigating them and seeing if we need to turn them into IT services, playing with them, failing sometimes, but learning from it. So that's the kind of context of our thinking as we started on our journey. And as we looked at new technology, these were the kind of statistics that kind of stood out. And this is my ultimate favorite one. I think this shows that if we can get voice right as an input mechanism, we can really make a positive difference. We're great at talking. You'll see some of that later in room 101, I'm sure. But we're not that good at typing. So if we can make voice work, there's potentially something quite powerful there. As we saw in the video, other companies have really levered this. So Google Assistant is something that's installed on the Android family of smartphones, and they said in 2017 that 70% of the search requests coming through the app were from people using their voice, not typing, not picking keywords. And I thought that was quite interesting. These voice devices, hands up for anyone that's got a home speaker, Google Home, Amazon Alexa, Microsoft, no one knows, Apple Home Pod? Yeah. So even in this room, we've got people that are using these devices, and we see students coming to the university and starting to say, well, you know, how are we going to use it to engage with the university services? Amazon's got this wonderful thing called Prime Student, and so we find that most students have actually got an Amazon account, and if they haven't got a device, we can soon get one into their hands. So again, it's quite a powerful way of reaching the student market. And Gartner's already been mentioned because universities and IT departments seem to love Gartner, and they say that the market for voice-activated skills will double itself every year by 2020. So we started to get the idea that chat and that voice was a potential way to deliver services, and it could be sort of useful. So we kind of embarked on this journey to learn about the chat technology. What do we do? Well, when you innovate, you throw something up and kind of see what happens. This is the first thing we threw up, a web-based chatbot. I think it was called the Mince Pineator. Chat with our friendly elf, Bernard, and you could have a little conversation. It would tell you jokes about Christmas. It would do a little Christmas quiz, and if you won the quiz, it would give you a voucher for a free mince pie at one of the campus outlets, thanks to our partnership with hospitality and retailing. In true innovation style, it wasn't massively successful. We probably got rid of about 10 mince pies, but it gave us the ability to be able to build a chat interface and kind of see how it works. And so we built on from there. So again, this is on the web, just people typing in. So we built SueBot. So Sue, at the time, was our kind of PA, building receptionist, and she was very happy for us to use her name and image, just to let you know. But what we did is we fed a tool in the Microsoft Azure suite with a load of information, frequently asked questions from our website, and we said, turn that into a web API that we can program against. So this bot knew quite a bit about your life in ISS. You could ask it about holiday requests, you could look up phone numbers, you could ask how to submit your expenses, things about security in the building, and all that kind of stuff, without having to ask a human at all. So we ran this, it was reasonably successful, and we started to present this out to departments, and they got crazily excited about it for some reason. Who knew that pages of frequently asked questions were the things that they really wanted to kind of get rid of? So a little bit too much excitement was generated around this, so we kind of calmed it all down a bit, and we started to then think about the potential of using voice and look at how other companies were using voice. So just a couple of examples that really, in our minds, demonstrated that there could be something in this. So this is the Domino's Pizza app. Anyone using that on their devices? I think this is brilliant. So Domino's realized that they know your credit card details, they know your favorite pizza, and also the device knows where you live. So their innovation was, ask Alexa to deliver me my Domino's pizza. That's all you needed to say. A short time later, knock, 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 and you get your pizza. And what was more impressive is that Domino's say that they took over an extra 4% of the worldwide market share of the pizza delivery business, which is a big number and a lot more than it actually cost them to develop the skill. I also really like this one. So this is Campbell's soup. They make kind of condensed soupy type things. And their innovation was, quite often you want to make something, but you only got a certain number of ingredients in your store cupboard. So inside their skill, you can read it, the things that you have, and it will come up with a recipe that contains those things. Now, it does also always contain a tin of Campbell's soup, so you have to kind of make sure that you're well stocked up with that kind of thing. And then also, when you get into making the recipe, it lets you do everything hands-free, so you can go forward, you can go back. It really uses the features and the things on the device. So we'd looked at our kind of chatbot examples, and people seemed to be getting excited. We'd seen these amazing kind of apps in the marketplace, and Domino's and Campbell's were telling us doesn't cost too much, generates a lot of revenue. So we started to think this could be something to really kind of get our teeth into. This was the final thing that sold it for me. This screenshot on the right is my niece, who was 4 at the time, super comfortable with using her Alexa device, and when her parents looked on their shopping list, they found a few kind of interesting items. And that got us thinking, really, loads of compelling examples. It should be, if we can get it right, faster and easier, because we can talk faster than we can type, right? It can save actual money, just like it did with Domino's and Campbell's. There could be university services that we can deliver here, which could save us money. And students, just like my niece, are super comfortable with using the voice platform. The other thing it could do is it could build a foundation for using these things called cloud services, which certainly at Lancaster we've not really got big into. Some of the vendors were telling us we needed to move all of our machines out of our data center into the cloud, which is a bit of a hard message because we've only just built a new data center and it's nice and full of roomy space, so that didn't go down too well. But we thought, hey, doing this could be a really good way to start using and getting some value out of cloud services. There we go. Don't know why Subot's in there again. One other thing we did is we did take Subot out into the sort of wider university just to really check that having this kind of chat interface was going to be useful. And we wrote, this is the PDR process. I don't know if other universities have the same thing. It's like your annual review that you have. And our HR team had just launched a brand new system to do it, and they wanted a way of handling all the kind of frequently asked questions for that. So we built them a PDR bot, which they made live on their website. And again, that was quite successful in showing people that this sort of chat technology could potentially work. Whew. So that was the kind of introduction to the journey, and all of this had been done in our innovation time that the university was giving me and our development team to kind of play with things. But playing only goes so far. We'd also met Amazon because we just happened to demo something on their Alexa technology. They introduced us to the concept of writing a press release first, which is something we've done on other projects actually, and it's really quite powerful. So you start off by writing the press release that you would expect to go into the press when you launch the product. And this is the actual press release that we wrote in the original business case. I didn't doctor it for this presentation, that's what we had. And what's even more interesting is this is the actual press article which ran in the print edition of the Times in March this year. And if you were to go through those two things, we actually got pretty close to what we said we were originally going to build. So we took that press release, not just the press release, they wanted a bit more. You know, we had to write a business case and justify some investment and that kind of thing. But we took that to our university board that gives us our funding, and we asked for around £50,000 to run this project, and that cost was mainly to employ developers to develop and write the skill. Not a massive amount, I don't think, in university terms. There was some reluctance, so some of the people who sit on the university board that gives us our money were not really convinced that students were going to like this. They had concerns about security, and we had to prove that the students really wanted it. In one point, I remember having a heated discussion with someone on that group and saying, well, if you understand it and really get it and want us to do it, then I'm worried. I think the fact that you're uncomfortable is actually good, because we're doing something that the students want, not what you want. Bit of a high-risk strategy. But they gave us the money and they said, get going. And so this is how we went from 0 to LU, which is the name of our skill. Crikey, that's dark. I'll guide you through it. So around March 2018, we'd built those early prototypes that I showed you. We'd kind of written the press release and we'd got the money. So they'd said, here's your 50K, get going. It actually took between March 2018 and November 2018 to clear all the university hurdles, to get the money turned into a cost centre that you could buy, to write the data privacy and impact assessment that we needed for the Amazon cloud, to do all this kind of admin and stuff, and that was intensely annoying. But by November 18, we were ready, so we called that our day 0. What did we do first? The first thing we did is we wrote out to 3,000 of our students that were using our mobile phone app, and we asked them one question: what would you like to ask a chatbot? Free text response. And we got hundreds and hundreds of responses, and we kind of categorized those together to work out what the students really wanted. Some interesting things there. Perhaps we shouldn't have been surprised. There were some academic things, you know, what grade I've got, how do I get to a room. There was a lot of stuff around when's the bars open, you know, when's the shops open, and that kind of stuff. And some stuff about the student societies as well. How can I get involved in student societies? When are their meetings and things like that? So we went back to our project board and said, these are roughly the areas that we're going to develop in. Does that sound cool to you? And they said, yeah, that's good. You might like to think about students who have a disability. They're not going to be well represented perhaps in your survey, but you should consider developing something for them. So we gave them a free wildcard category, and they picked disability support. We developed software using the Agile methodology, so we ran a series of short sprints to deliver it. The first thing we had to do was build our infrastructure inside the Amazon cloud. They were super helpful. They ran a number of free courses for our developers on site. They also sent us 200 Echo Dot devices for free, which we could give out around campus to our beta test users, and they helped us with questions about how we secure it and build our infrastructure. So the first 20 days was really spent getting the product ready to build. Then we started to build in events, so linking it to university systems, things like when's my next lecture, when's my next timetabled event. Students were really interested in deadlines. They wanted to be reminded when they needed to do work. And also we had an idea that we wanted the bot to have a friendly voice, so we started working on friendly greetings. A lot of work deciding, you know, just how friendly is friendly and when is a joke not a joke and all these kind of things. Some of the responses were fairly simple, sort of question and answer responses, so we built a back-end system to allow us to put them in really easily. And we also started to work with students and focus groups, including a group of disabled students, to get the skill in front of them and to get feedback really early on so we could build that back into the development process. around day 80 we're up to now, we built in exams. We realised that students wanted to know where they were sitting at exams, when their exams were. We also hooked it up to an external source of knowledge so that students could research virtually any subject that they were interested in, and that gave us a whole load more things you could ask the skill without having to do too much coding. We also realised that even though we were focusing on students, fairly easily we could do services for staff. So a student might want to know when their next lecture is, but a member of staff might want to know that as well. And also a student might want to know the contact details of a member of staff so they can call them or book an appointment with them. So we started hooking it up to some staff data. The launch date of March the 5th, 2019 was in our minds now, so we're getting into the last sort of 20 days or so. One of the things we wanted to do was have opening times of facilities at the university. So we started to look around and see if there was any data source that we could use for that. Imagine our surprise when there was no reliable data source. Our IT director suggested we use Google, but it turns out that that just had all of the times completely wrong. We went and talked to our facilities colleagues and said, where's the opening times? And they kind of shrugged their shoulders and complained at us. So we took a little pause there, and we actually built a system that allows our colleagues in facilities to input all of the opening times, including vacation times. And at first they weren't keen, but we said, we'll do you a deal. If we write this system and you put the data into it for our voice skill, how about we push that back to the campus website for you so you never have to update the website CMS again? That was the clincher. So we did that. And we integrated it with various other services, as many as we could. So PC availability, the availability of washers and dryers, the library so that you can ask which books you have out and you can reserve things. And we also remembered we'd said we'd deliver it in the mobile app as well, so we integrated it in. In the last sort of 20 days, sprinkle a bit of magic sauce in there, deploy it and test it, and we hit our launch date. We'd booked a big kind of press launch on the 5th of March. We'd invited Amazon and the local papers and stuff, so we had to hit that deadline. And we launched on the 5th of March, 2019, after just 120 days, which we were fairly chuffed with. We called our skill LU, and we kind of branded it Ask LU because the students can ask it anything that they want. Size of the team, so we've got 3 full-time developers working on this. We also employed a conversational specialist. One of the interesting things when you develop for voice is that there's multiple ways of asking the same question. So you need someone with conversational skills to design those flows and make sure that you don't miss things that the students are asking. Another thing that we do within our team is make a lot of use of students. So we probably had between 8 and 12 part-time students working on this project. Some of them working, nearly all the hours they could in a week. Some of them just doing 1 or 2 hours. If there's another thing you can take from this presentation, use students. They don't cost a lot, but there's a great benefit for you because they won't develop things that they don't agree with. They'll tell you it's stupid and they won't do it, whereas that doesn't always happen with staff. But also it gives them real-world experience of working. All of our students have got a first so far, so no pressure on the ones coming into the team. But it's been a really great experience seeing those students kind of come on and work with us to do development. Finally, before we sort of show you what it looks like, how did we involve the student body itself? So we had this model really of 4 different ways of interacting. So looking at kind of interactivity, we had a number of focus groups using the skill. They were using it from the very first release, so after 20 days in that first release. We were talking to the service desk to work out what kind of issues we were likely to get, and students were actively feeding into the design of the products. We had focus groups, roundtable discussions, and also once we'd launched the skill, we were monitoring the students' social media platforms to see what they were talking about and picking up kind of bugs and issues and things like that. So trying to do all those 4 different methods of involving the students. So there we go. I'm going to show you the launch video that we played to kind of officially launch our skill on the 5th of March, and then we'll get into a little bit about kind of what it does. Check I've got my sound on. Here we go. Starting university can be daunting. There we go. So let's see perhaps if we can come down and coax our device into action. Disclaimer, Wi-Fi, live environment and all that kind of stuff, it might go wrong. Alexa, open LU.
Hi, welcome back to LU. I can help with questions about your timetable, your deadlines or your exams. What would you like to know?
What's my student ID?
Your student ID is 346175882. What else can I help you with?
What week is it?
It's currently summer vacation. How else can I help you?
What lectures do I have on Friday?
You have a .S100 ZSS. What else can I help you with?
What time is Greg's open today?
Greg's is open on Wednesday between 7 o'clock and 1700 hours. What can I help you with next?
Where can I get a stamp on campus?
Sure, you'll find stamp at post office. What else can I help you with?
Is it going to rain?
Well, the weather on campus is showing few clouds. How else can I help you?
Bye.
Hi, welcome back to LU. I can help with questions about your timetable, your
Alexa,
deadlines or your exams.
Stop. It was going so well. Brilliant. So that's the experience that a student gets if they're using an Alexa device. We also have it available inside the mobile phone platform. The reason for doing that is because we had at least 98% of students using our mobile phone app, so that was a great way to allow them to use it if they didn't have a voice device. This is a kind of web version. Inside there we have kind of key things that they can just click on, so they can either type the text directly or they can pick from one of these kind of shortcut keys. They can search using their voice, or they can do one of these particular ones. And we've got that embedded in the mobile phone app, and we're currently working to embed it inside our kind of web-based student portal as well. So it works inside the Lancaster mobile app, and it works on any member of the Alexa smart speaker device. The feedback from students has been really good. So some of the examples I showed you there work really well for a new student, and we had some new students actually talking about what it meant to them.
It's great for freshers arriving to campus for the first time, because in Freshers Week they won't know where to go for the right information, where to search online. So it's great that it centralises all information to one place.
I actually wish I had Alexa when I came here, because I was so confused. It takes out all the confusion. It can ask for the lecture times, who is teaching the next class, where you have to go, and also asking for where buildings are. For example, the base, the library, many students don't even know where that is in the first week. Everybody's walking around kind of aimlessly exploring. So that would be like a shortcut to exploration. Definitely should shorten the process of getting to know the university.
I was involved in the planning of Freshers Week. A lot of them have been on tours, but a lot of, especially the international students, never seen anything on campus, and obviously we don't know the names of lecture theatres, so asking a device and not having to worry about being embarrassed or not knowing who to ask, I think that's definitely helpful.
I think this application could really help freshers in terms of getting to grips with everything on campus, and it's finding out more about the departments that were allocated and academic advisors, requesting emails to get in touch with tutors.
There are many questions that freshers have about everything because they know nothing about the university. They just come to it what they can do with the device. They can simply ask the device those questions, which I think can quite ease the change in between the previous life and the university life.
It helps me find out when my next project or essay is due, and I can then ask it to remind me what I need to have done when.
One of the things I
So one of the surprising things maybe about working with students and the focus groups that used the beta devices was that sometimes students would feel embarrassed about asking sort of simple questions. When we talked to the staff, so from the IT help desk, they would feel that they were very approachable and that a student would come and ask what their computer IT login or their email was, or we talked to the base, which does our welfare services, and they expressed the view that students would be really keen to come to our approachable service and say things. Sometimes though, the students don't feel like that. They feel as though they're embarrassed to ask, and one of the things they really liked is some of the simple questions like what college am I in and what's my student ID. They're things that they need to know, and they don't actually want to come and ask a member of staff because they feel embarrassed. So that was really kind of interesting feedback, and we used that to build more of those kind of questions in. So you can ask it what your email address is, which, I mean, we IT people, we think they all know that, but they don't. They forget it, and they kind of need to know it. But what we really wanted to do was also build some useful utility in there for current students. So hopefully we can demo a few of those. Alexa, open LU.
Hi, welcome back to LU. I can help with questions about your timetable, your deadlines or your exams. What would you like to know?
What hours have I got next week?
It looks like you've got 42 teaching hours in next week. What can I help you with next?
Where is my next event?
Next up, you're in ISS B25. How else can I help you?
When is my next essay due?
There are no deadlines listed for the next 7 days. What else can I help you with?
What's my average grade?
There are 10 news today. Do you want to hear them?
No.
There are no events on today. You have 9 events on your timetable today. Would you like to hear what they are?
No.
That's it for today. How else can I help you?
What's my average grade?
What is your PIN?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Your average mark is 66.83%. What else can I help you with?
Research the distance between the Earth and the Moon.
The distance from Earth to the Moon at 14:23 Irish Standard Time, Wednesday the 3rd of July 2019 is about 365,619 kilometers. What else can I help you with?
Do I have any loans from the library?
You've got 7 items on loan. Do you want to know what they are?
No.
Okay. How else can I help you?
Can you book me a group pod on Friday at 3 p.m?
And for how many people?
2 people.
How many hours is that for?
2 hours.
Great. So it's a workroom for 2 people at 3 p.m. on Friday the 5th of July for 2 hours. Shall I book that?
Yes.
Booked a 1 group study space at 3 p.m. on Friday the 5th of July for 2 hours. How else can I help you?
Bye.
See you later, Brian.
So a couple of interesting things in there. The research skill links to a service called Workroom Alpha, which supplies kind of academic knowledge. So you can ask to research virtually any question across all the different disciplines, and students find that really useful. When we did the average mark, that was something the university was a bit concerned about because your mark information could be potentially secret, and we didn't want that to be read out on the device. So what you saw there is the students are able to go into the app and set a PIN number. If you give the PIN number to the device, as I did, it will read it. If you're on the mobile device, you're already authenticated, so we just give you your mark straight away. I think that last example, booking a group workroom, is really interesting because we timed how long it took students to book group workrooms, and if you're going really, really, really fast, you can probably do it in less than a minute, but you have to be doing it regularly and really know how to drive the library group work system. But using the device, I'll just make it quiet. Using the device, you can actually have a single conversation. So I said, can you book me a group pod on Friday at 3? I could have said, can you book me a group pod on Friday at 3 for 2 people, and given it all the information, and it would have instantly gone and made the booking. And actually, if I showed you my email, it's actually booked that in our live pod booking system, and it sent me an email. And I can also use the device to check on my bookings and potentially cancel it if needed. So students are super excited about that, and staff are saying, well, why can't we have that for the staff timetable system? And the kind of our reasons for that. So I'll just show you some of the feedback we got off new students who say that it's really useful using some of the things that we've done there.
Well, in essence, it's kind of like having a virtual friend who knows everything about the university. I mean, that's how I want it to be. Someone who you can ask anything and is going to know about the university. So it's basically a virtual assistant, which you can call also a virtual friend, because you can ask it everything and it's going to ask everything.
So a lot of students are already using Alexas and voice-activated devices at home, so it's great that they can come to university and it will be a Lancaster-specific thing that they can use when they're here.
Just the idea that that you can ask questions without having to kind of go on your phone, especially when you're revising or writing up notes. I always get distracted. I look at my phone to look at something on my Lancaster, and I'll end up texting people back and looking at time, playing games, whatever. But with Alexa, it's easy to just ask the question, get the answer, and continue.
I think it will be really good for like increasing time management, and it'll make things easier in the mornings when getting ready. It's like a faster way of getting information across. I really like how easy it is to use, and how sort of quick it is to get the set information across, whether it's like deadlines or what lectures are coming up next, or like information about campus and opening times for like Gregson and Master and everything. It's just really helpful.
So we had really great feedback from students. One of the things that we did realise early on is that what you've seen today is authenticated, so it needs to know who the student is so it can read them the mark and tell them the timetable. Since we've launched it, we've split it, so it now works in an unauthenticated way, and that's really great for visitors. So visitors can ask about directions on campus. They can ask questions like, why should I come to Lancaster? Is Lancaster well known for research? You can even get it to read out a list of famous bands that have played at the university. And then if you're a member of staff or a student, you can then add the authentication and you'll have access to all of those sort of features and functions. The final group, if you remember, we said we were going to work with was students with disabilities, and we've had some really great feedback from them. So the final video here is showing you some of those students that we worked with. Particularly powerful, one of the girls featured on this video is blind, and actually working with her to understand how a device could help her go through her day has been a really sort of powerful experience for us.
Some students have a lot of difficulty accessing information, and particularly students with visual impairments who might struggle with website content or printed text, then they can access that information through their voice. But it's not just good for them, it's good for students with specific learning difficulties like dyslexia, who might find reading a lot of information quite challenging, so they can just ask their voice device.
It's been helpful sort of in the morning for remembering what lectures I've got, because it's hard when you wake up to be like, oh right, I've got this today, I need to be on campus at this time, because like every day is different and it's just hard to get it all straight in your head. And obviously like I could check my timetable, but I don't know, somehow when you ask it and it tells you, it makes it easier to remember. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm studying linguistics and I really liked the idea of like using language and speech and technology to like help people, especially with like disabilities, and voice software is really helpful, so that interested me. It's handy for checking when my deadlines are, because I have so many deadlines because I'm in third year, and getting them all sorted out is stressful, so knowing concrete when they are is really helpful.
So we built in specific features for disabled students to give them access to all the kind of information they need, but as you saw there, some of the most powerful things, especially with Rihanna, was just the ability not to have to engage with a traditional computing device and type stuff, to have it read out, and just to hear her say what a difference it had made that she could just hear that answer was really quite powerful. So finally, a little bit of stuff about how we actually built it. There's a couple of different ways of using it, as I mentioned. So you can start off with the Lancaster app. All of this, the majority of this is built inside the Amazon cloud platform. So it uses a service called Amazon Lex. Or if you're coming in via an Alexa device like the Echo device here, it uses a service called the Alexa Skills Kit. Now, what happens first is it tries to work out what you're asking about. So you can ask a question in multiple different ways. But if I'm asking about a deadline, it knows that I'm asking about perhaps my timetable. If I'm asking about an opening time, it kind of gets the idea. It gets the intent of what I'm asking. And then it tries to fill in any information it needs. So when I'm asking for a library group pod, it knows that my intent is to perform a room booking, and it knows that to do that, it needs to collect a bunch of information, which you saw in the demo. So I gave it the time and the day, and it then needs to go and fill in how many people it's for and how long. All of that is done completely serverless inside the Amazon cloud. There's no infrastructure to run. It's all done completely serverless, and Amazon just send us a bill at the end of the month. We use a service called API Gateway, which allows the Amazon cloud to talk to our local APIs. And one of the key things for developing this was making sure that the systems that we were talking to had APIs available. So you remember the facilities opening time system? Students really, really, really wanted it, but there was no system, so we actually had to go and build the system. And one of the key things with developing this type of technology is having systems that you can actually integrate with and talk to. For there, we use the Amazon Elasticsearch service to be able to go to those APIs in a flexible way. And there's loads of other tools in the Amazon bucket, or if you don't like Amazon, the Microsoft bucket, because you can do this there as well, which allow you to work out what the service is doing, to troubleshoot it, to store things, and to kind of just get on with it. The feedback from the developers has been really, really positive. Before we developed this skill, we had done zero coding on the Amazon platform at all at day zero. And you've seen what we've been able to produce. So from a kind of learning perspective, they've had a really, really good experience. The other question that comes up is how we authenticate it, which can be a challenge at universities. We use something called Amazon Cognito, which manages all of the user accounts. If a user comes in for the first time through an Alexa device, we look to see if we've seen them before, and if we haven't, we call our university single sign-on provider. A token is passed back and we provision them with an account. If, however, they come in through their mobile phone app, then we use our existing user info to create that account inside the Cognito platform, and from then on, we know about the user, we're able to access their preferences, their PIN numbers, and all the kind of things that you've seen. So that's just a little bit about how we built it. If you're interested in more information, then come and grab me. If it gets too technical, I can hook you up with our development team. Questions that come up when we present this is how we kind of sold it and marketed it to the students. So we had a kind of marketing campaign where we ran sort of really nice, bold posters across our e-screens, and each one of those would give you a different idea of what you could potentially ask the device. We also had kind of pull-up banners in our learning zone, in our library, in areas where the students will be, to try and encourage them to use it. And one of the things that coincidentally we'd happened to have just launched at Lancaster was the ability to use the screensavers on campus PCs to play messaging, and so we ran messages on that. The idea was when students are sitting waiting for their lecture, that's a perfect captive time to hit them with messaging, and that seemed to work really well as well. We also ran a number of case stories on the main kind of university website. So we took people that had used the skill and sort of highlighted their stories to try and increase adoption. So one thing I'm not showing on the slides, but we have got, is a platform where you can look and see which requests are coming in, which are the most popular intents, how many users are being served. To give you an idea, since we launched in March, we've had over 100,000 individual requests through the platform. It started off maybe about 80-20 split between the mobile phone platform and voice devices, but that split is changing and it's increase in the voice platform. And we think as students bring voice devices to the university and we start to provide more of them, we'll see more and more people coming through voice. So hopefully we've done what we set out to do and told you a little bit about why you might do it, shown you how we got there. The important thing is what we're going to do next. So we are currently in the second phase, so we went back to the university and asked for some more investment, and they said, this is all going super well, please do more. We've actually just launched today, well, I couldn't get it working for the demo, lecturer feedback. So you can already ask for what your grade is, but what we'd really like is to be able to say, would you like to listen to your feedback? And it will tell you kind of like how you can improve your essay and that kind of stuff. So it pulls that from our Moodle system. And if the lecturer has given voice feedback, they've actually recorded that, it will play that out with the lecturer's voice through the device as well. So we've done that. We've also integrated with our lecture capture system, which is Panopto, so that you can ask for a specific clip from your lecture and it will play you the audio of that, or if you're on a video-enabled device, it will play you the video. We're investigating using some of the other cloud technologies, so machine learning could potentially give us the ability to make interventions and to say to the student, you might like to read this particular article because other people on your course have kind of done well, so we're having a look at that. We're interested in the idea of making it even more into a digital friend. So at the moment, it gives you kind of friendly greetings, sometimes it throws in little sort of jokes and bits and pieces, and it's designed to be sort of useful to the students. But from a welfare point of view, it would be really good to be the student to be able to say, I'm kind of struggling, I'm not doing too well, and to have a conversation. Maybe not all of that conversation exists within the voice platform. Maybe sometimes you need to refer them to a member of staff. But it could be that you can give them really simple advice on how to deal with difficult situations, how to relax and be mindful, how to get help with kind of money management. These are the kind of things that we're investigating. And that's using these things called Socratic questioning as well. So the idea of Socratic questioning is you can ask open questions to get the student to kind of realize the answer themselves. So we're investigating that. We're also looking at integrating into other endpoints. So I showed you the web-based integration. We've demonstrated integration into Facebook and into Microsoft Teams, and we're building integration into our student portal. So the idea is to get the skill into a lot more places where students can use it. We also had a crazy idea that we could integrate with our Qualtrics survey system, so you could build workflow in there and effectively have the end user building those conversation flows, so you wouldn't even need a developer. And we have actually got that working, and there is a part of the skill which allows you to give feedback, and that's directly driven by Qualtrics. So we're kind of interested to see where that goes. I think to summarise, the feedback from students has been really good. The usage looks really good. I think there's many more areas we can go. The strategy for us really is to deep dive into a few other areas like lecturer feedback, like welfare, and kind of see where it goes, as well as trying to build extra services. So if we could build a staff room bookings module, that would be absolutely incredible. So as long as the university keeps funding us, we're going to keep going. The other thing we'd like to do is, it's no longer really an innovation, so my innovation team needs to get on with doing whatever you're going to dream up in your Back to the Future conference next. So I need to try and move that into the rest of the IT support of the organisation, and that is always incredibly challenging, and we'll have to see how that goes. Yep, and we're also thinking about potentially working with Amazon to put devices in rooms as well, although there's some kind of challenges around that. So that's where we're heading in the future. I've come into land. Feel free to get in touch if you want more information. Always happy to talk to other universities that are trying to do this, either about the process or about building a skill that's the same or similar. And if there's time for questions, I will happily address them. Now. It looks like there is.
Hiya. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Hello.
I was just going to ask about devices in rooms, because not all students are coming with the same amount of money, and they might not be able to buy the same amount of devices as everybody else. So how are you going to tackle that side of it?
That's an excellent question. One of the reasons for having it inside the mobile app and on the student portal was because we wanted to make sure that students weren't disadvantaged because it was device only. So that was kind of one of our strategies that we had from the beginning. We've been looking at two different things. can the university buy 6,500 devices off Amazon at a cut down price? Turns out that's not an easy thing to do. Who knew? So we're still investigating that, and if that's an option, that will be a really good one, say, when you come to Lancaster. There's also the option that if they sign up to kind of the Amazon Prime student, they can get a free device, although that doesn't really address people with kind of finance issues. So I think really the strategy is putting it everywhere, not just the devices, and trying to find a way to get the university to either subsidise a device or buy them. But it's still a very kind of active conversation, really.
Firstly, that looks absolutely amazing. I've no idea how we would even consider starting something of that scale, but yeah, it looks brilliant. But however good the technology is, doesn't mean that the information that is given out is going to be right. So how do you go about making sure that that information is right? And have you had any examples of when it's gone, you know, spectacularly wrong?
There's a few ways of looking at that. One of the design principles that we had was it should link to information in other systems rather than us having to build it. So the number of sort of question and answer type responses in there is intentionally quite low. So when you're asking about your grade or your timetable, it's going directly to the student record system. So the chances are that that information is going to be right. That's one thing to say. There is feedback mechanism in the app and in the device itself. So if the information is wrong, the student can kind of report it at the time when they're using it. We still continue with our focus groups. So sometimes, as you saw in the demo, it sometimes answers a different question than it was asked just because it doesn't understand. The platform itself should adapt to that over time and get better. But we use kind of focus groups where we get people in and get them to use the skill and try and pick up some of those. So it's really a multi-tiered approach to try and make sure that if it's not doing the right thing, we get the feedback really quickly and we can address it, and also not building ourselves into a corner and having information that's likely to go out of date. So I think the facilities example is a good one there. You know, we built a system that we know is going to be accurate and up to date, and then integrated it and pushed it out to kind of other areas. It's always a challenge.
So I think you mentioned the number of kind of hits that the number of times it's being used, but I wondered if you had a sense of what percentage of your student body is using this service, and also it's kind of the ultimate in shift left, really. What kind of, have you got a sense of what resource you're saving with the students that would have contacted a service desk, spoken to somebody, but they're getting that information themselves?
Oh, that's the golden question, if we could do that. In terms of the percentage of students that are using it, I haven't really got that off the top of my head. I think that is something that we can work out with the stats that we've got. Because it's only been kind of live since March, we've really been focusing on trying to grow adoption, but we can get that. In terms of savings, I don't think we're there yet. I think it's got the potential, maybe more for staff. There's a number of things that we know staff find really annoying, raising purchase requests, booking rooms, and take absolutely ages. We can put a cost on those, and I think future versions of the business case, if we continue down this route, will start to put that in kind of sort of cash terms. But at the moment, we've not really got an idea. In terms of cost, we've spent the money from the original business case, so 50,000 to do the development, and I think last month we paid our first actual bill to Amazon. So we're probably talking operating costs of less than 10,000 a year, something in that order. So it's not hugely expensive, but more work to do, I think.
Hi, Chris. For those of us that sometimes struggle to get funding to keep the lights on, have you got any tips for how we persuade boards to give us money for innovation?
That's a great question.
Thanks.
I think my approach to it, which has been reasonably successful, but ask Lancaster colleagues to challenge if not, is to try and really show them the end benefit in sort of student terms if you're building something for students. So being able to have those kind of video clips where you say, look, this is a student using it, this is the difference it made, that kind of really wakes them up. And if you can do that as you bring on new projects, they kind of warm to the idea that what you're doing is actually useful and actually valuable. The other thing is, if you're starting for the first time, and this sounds a bit political and naughty, but I try and sort of pick off the people on the project team. So I was having conversations with the head of student services and saying, what do you think about voice? And when she was saying, well, I think it's a terrible idea, saying, well, look at this and look at the potential, and perhaps we could build in something that would be useful for you. And even before you get to the meeting where they're going to have to agree the funding, you've kind of had those conversations and they're prepared and kind of bought in. But it was definitely challenging. We had to go through a number of iterations, and people were still saying, why would you write this? Students don't want this. You've kind of got to show them the data and say, yeah, this isn't for you, this is for the students, and then you might get somewhere.
Slight follow-up. The person who was anti-voice, how did they react when you got such a fantastic reaction in the press and from your colleagues?
I think they were fine. The university really liked the kind of press response it got. I mean, interestingly, they're most excited that it went in the print edition of the Times. Apparently being in print is like the massive thing, which we didn't really care about at all. But yeah, they were really pleased with the kind of press it got, and I think they can now start to see some of the benefits. And she was perfectly fine. She's a good friend, so that's all right. Excellent. I don't think there are any more questions, but I will be around. I'm back later for room 101, so if you want to grab me and talk more, then do.